This is a disaster today. Oh my god.
Okay, that's funny. Well, luckily you
It
had
was
mine.
live earlier.
It was live, but then it did the Wi-Fi thing, and then it disconnected. But it's okay because you're live on
Leilah,
Live.
I blame you for that one.
Well, you were strong.
I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Today's been a bit of a moon in Aries moment.
Oh well, I've been feeling moon in Aries moments.
Have you?
A lot lately, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what?
Impulsive.
Impulsive, a bit.
Slightly angry.
But
Frustrated.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I deal with it. Hello, Tracy. Sorry,
Hi, Tracy.
was Walter's fault.
This is my fault. Yeah. We switched to Wi-Fi and the whole thing crashed.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, speaking about emotions and stuff, I've been feeling quite emotional. Not emotional, but what I do, I've learned to really express my emotions.
Okay.
Like we said, the emotions is energy in motion. So if you look like at a river,
yeah,
you should flow like the water in the river. And when you get blocks, it blocks the flow.
Yes.
Right? So then we're not able to flow. And when we create blockages, we are actually manifesting other things in our life. So when we don't deal with our emotional stuff, like many people do,
yeah,
it manifests in secondary emotions.
The second ripples, or the
Yes.
third ripples.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the secondary emotions would be like resentment, anger,
Yeah.
Embarrassment is a secondary emotion, and that's because we're not being fluid. Like now, I feel like we're being fluid.
Maybe we're finally finding the flow.
Now we're finding the flow.
We found the Wi-Fi, now we're finding the
good
flow.
connection.
Connection.
No, we got a better connection. Yeah, so I think to actually be present with your emotions is very, very, very important. Many years I was unpresent with my emotions.
Yeah.
And because I was unpresent with my emotions, I actually had a lot of digestive issues.
That's interesting.
Because I was holding on.
Yeah.
And not letting go. So that just, I wouldn't be able to flow properly.
Because excuse me, what's interesting is, from an astrological point of view, the emotion is looked after by the moon. And the organ that the moon looks after is the stomach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? The organ the moon looks after
or rules is the stomach.
Is the stomach. So whatever you are not happy with, all that I've learned as well with emotions, anything that's not dealt with gets stuck in the gut. Because that's where we also feel our gut instinct. And sometimes when we don't deal with it, it becomes almost like cynical. Like, you know, when you create, when you're not, the opposite to being intuitive, when you overthink and overanalyze.
Yeah, you're being cerebral, aren't you?
Yeah.
But I think what happens, for me, from a personal perspective, from a personal experience, I was always very emotional as a child.
Yeah.
But being a boy, you're not really allowed to be overly emotional. You know, although I grew up in Borneo and Brunei and stuff, but I think in terms of gender roles, it's very similar across the world. You know, it's in that particular time. We're talking the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So in terms of what a boy does and what a girl does, they're very sort of like, very specific. Whereas nowadays, you're looking at gender roles that are a little more fluid. There's people actually like moving in and out of what would be deemed to be feminine and masculine, blah, blah, blah. But growing up, it was very different. And so for me, there was always this emotionality, but also a kind of very strong need to suppress all that, to really suppress and to come across as being as masculine as I could be. And so as time progressed, that sort of created a kind of like a silting over of all the emotional stuff, because I was not processing. I was really just sort of like letting it sit and create layers and layers and layers and layers. And as time progressed, it didn't take long for me to sort of have that sort of cover my capacity, or cover my heart chakra. The way I look at it is, it sort of rises.
I like the t-shirt, by the way. Speaking about emotions, we have the salt rock over here.
Yeah.
The rock.
The rock. I'm the rock. Well, I'm not the rock.
Ooh,
But
I like the rock.
I'll be the rock today.
I do.
But, you know,
Yeah.
I think the way I see it is that the emotions begin to silt over and then eventually rise far enough to actually then block the heart. And then we become, I won't say heartless, but we become less compassionate in our engagement with the world. I remember someone very dear to me had actually said, this is when I was a lot younger, and they had said, it'd be amazing to be in love. And I turned around, I was very cerebral at that point in my life, and I said, what's the point of being in love? You just get hurt. Just live from your head and you be happy.
Disconnection.
Absolute disconnection.
Disconnection.
But when I went through my psychosynthesis, I dropped. Whatever process they took me through, I dropped into that place. Maybe I was not totally ready, but I think life puts you in a place when you're ready for it. Whether you are consciously ready for it or not, life will put you where you are energetically ready for it. And so I dropped into a place, went through a kind of very deep emotional trauma / breakthrough. But through that, apart from having to then deal and sort of make amends for all those emotional hurts or the emotional disconnect that I had actually done to myself over all those years, what then became apparent was, as I dropped into myself, that I was actually very, very emotional. And through that reconnecting to that emotionality, life had more color. Life began to have more color for me. Although I was still seeing life as I do right now, but there was a new layer of experience that was coming into my consciousness that I became aware of. So that's my experience with emotions. I think it's, you know, as you mentioned earlier, when you bring up children with a healthy appreciation and acknowledgement of their emotions, not just primarily the emotions. Obviously, you want a balance of the emotions, the intellect, the body. But when you've got all of those aspects mingling and actually working together without a kind of judgment, no, but this is not good, that's not good, or this is what we have to sort of promote. When you've got all of them working together, you actually build an individual who's a lot more robust in actually dealing with and meeting the moment in
emotional
life.
Intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, I don't know if we mentioned this on here or where we've mentioned it earlier, but we spoke about emotions and where lots of people have a response towards emotion. Just to let you know, if you just logged on and joined, because this kind of was on Instagram first, I don't know if we've mentioned it, but an emotion is a thought that first enters that creates an emotion. So you are fully responsible for your own emotions and things that happen to you. So there's a saying in Hamlet, you know Hamlet, that says that there's no right and wrong.
I agree.
And we all have a perception, so there's no actual right and wrong, but it's how the brain feeds that to yourself as an individual.
That's a tough one though, because I mean, they are moral rights and wrongs.
Yeah, like murders and stuff, right?
You had to bring something as severe as murder. No, I'm just saying in terms of like, let's just say, I love you. You always come in with the darkest energy to come in. Yes.
Let's get real.
Let's keep it real. Let's keep it very real. But yeah, I think there are certain things that there is a right and wrong. But I hear what you're saying, that energetically things will actually enter our system. Yeah. And we each have a kind of internal bias. When it has this frequency, we react this way. When it has that frequency, we react that way. And so in some sense, the energy that first meets us has no right or wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It is the internal bias that then...
And it's how that thought enters into the mind and how the mind reads it based on your perception of what you felt like. So say, for example, you've gone through a situation when you're young where someone crosses the road, just say, hypothetically, and you had seen a trauma or witnessed something, and it triggered you. So when you become older, something happens in the road, there's a reaction because your mind remembers subconsciously what was created. Right?
Yes.
So you kind of simulate a thought process of how that is going.
Yeah.
So the emotion is not what I'm trying to say is the emotional is not an external thing. Everything that you feel on an emotional basis is happening on an internal, energetically internal.
It is your reaction to the energy that's flowing through you.
Yes. Well, yes, that's exactly how to say it.
So how would you support someone in redirecting the way in which they engage with an energy?
I feel like it's first important to understand, you know, to understand what they feel and where they're coming from, to understand where they are with that emotion. It depends like what you're saying. So if someone comes and they have an issue with anger or with shame, it's sit down and find out where's this coming from, because we need that emotion to be come from a root of somewhere.
Absolutely.
And to take them back to the root of what created that emotion, to sit with that and to investigate that.
Interesting. From an astrological point of view, because I mean astrology is like a bit of my baby, I would look at the overall chart. You know, if you mentioned anger was the issue that was actually playing up at that particular point, then I would look at the Mars to actually see how healthy is the Mars. Is Mars fully integrated in the overall picture of the chart? Is it given free flow, free expression? Because we must, you know, I think in our culture there's always this concept that anger is a bit of me growing up. There's always this concept that anger there isn't a place for anger. But my personal opinion is now looking back.
Go to South Africa.
Well, what's that? Is anger very much expressed?
Yeah. Well, I feel like, especially in our type of community, like with the mixed race community, anger is a very, very interesting emotion.
And I think it's a healthy emotion as well, especially because I always see Mars, the energy of Mars is asserting something about the self. So we say that anger is somehow asserting something about the individual. What exactly is the issue? Why is there a disconnect with the individual stating that they have something to state about themselves that hasn't got a place in their community, in their society, in their home, in their family? What is it about the individual that is being displaced? So that's where I would look at the Mars in the person's chart to see how well they are integrated.
Okay, that's interesting, and I will say why. So let's look at a case study, right? Now, I'm not going to sound dark, because, you know, whenever I make an example, it comes across quite dark. Let's look at a relationship. A couple comes in, and they're seeking therapy because the woman, she's a battered housewife.
Oh my God, you are bringing in the heaviest energies today.
Well, this is Leilah's world. This is the real world.
Let me get the smudge.
The sage. We're going to need to sage all this corner.
Hello, Santa. Let's clear the energy here. Come on. Anyway, yes.
So, if I look at a man, okay, so let's just speak about an example. I was in a relationship with a guy who, he was quite angry, quite aggressive, right? And this is what I have this certification of assertiveness coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So we deal with the 3 languages, the way we express ourselves. So 1 being aggressive, 2 being passive aggressive, and then 3 being assertive.
Yes.
Now, we live in a society where a lot of people are passive aggressive. They are afraid to speak the truth and honor the truth, so they go about it in a very indirect way, almost as indirect humor, which comes across quite passive aggressive, right?
Yes.
So we look at the aggressive man, and the aggressive man is very angry. This woman attracts this man who beats her, or the man attracts the woman who the woman beats the man up.
Yeah.
The violence and the anger is a secondary emotion. So it's coming from a place of obviously rage and anger. So for me, it's tracking back that emotion.
Absolutely.
To see where is that anger being boiled under.
And the thing is, it's not always just the individual. You may actually find that by tracking back, this is actually a family dynamic.
Yeah, no, it for sure.
Or a social dynamic, a culture dynamic.
Very much like that. So it would have probably been one of those dynamics where that person felt helpless. They couldn't find themselves. Hello, Michael and Gail and Robin and
Jill.
Anthony. Sorry, I'm not going to read out all the names. Where the person felt like they couldn't probably express themselves or couldn't be really true. Maybe the boy seeing his mother being beaten up by the stepfather. Maybe this was, financial issue that escalated to a physical issue.
Yeah.
That child felt quite helpless, suppressed, build up rage, anger, and frustration. The child gets into that pattern. These things are coming up and being triggered. I know this is a very sensitive subject, so I don't
So
really
who
want
breaks the cycle?
the person. The person, the guy or the woman. It will take the individual to break the cycle.
We are each responsible
Exactly
for breaking the cycle.
Yeah. But if you're speaking
our...
about it in that case study, so the man beating the woman, or the
But the
man
woman could still just as easily break the cycle because she's the other part of the dynamic.
Yeah, but it break the cycle in which term, in which way? She can't heal that guy because that's codependency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why even attempt to? I mean, my personal opinion is, if you are being beaten, then where's the self-honouring? And this is not a judgment call.
No, that's
because
true.
We've been in difficult
true.
situations. Yes. I've been in difficult relationships.
And I have for sure. And that self-honouring, self-love and self-respect has to come from the woman, of course.
Or the person who's being abused.
Don't worry, honey, you can press the replay button.
But yes, so the person who is suffering is just as responsible for breaking the cycle. I mean, granted, they may not be breaking the cycle for the person who is abusive, but they could be breaking the cycle for themselves where they are engaging with and playing the role of the victim in that dynamic. Because if every dynamic has two sides of the coin, effectively, if you decide to stop playing one side of the coin, the person will have to find another. But it's not your job to then find or make sure that no one else falls under his or her.
Absolutely, but it's still very important that that person or whoever is the perpetrator finds the right help to get through that. And some men are aware, or some women are aware that they have this issue, and that needs to be dealt with. So that's very, very important.
But the problem is as well, there is shame. To actually come clean, to say that you've got this issue.
There is shame.
There's social
which is an emotion.
It is.
Secondary emotion.
Yeah, but it's, social stigma. Oh, you've got this issue of you. Everyone wants to be perfect. I think with social media and everything else that's going on these days, there's such a drive to appear like everything's in control that to then come out with a tarnish on your identity becomes even harder. Gone are the days when we lived in a little village and we've got an issue and you just go to I won't say a witch doctor, but you went to some expert, and basically it doesn't really go much further than your village. But now you've got social media. Someone actually hears that, oh, Walter's going for psychiatric help. Bang! It's big news. Not that it's big news, but you know what I mean. It's. I think the risk of shame, the risk of exposure, the higher risk of exposure creates even greater pressure to almost stay in, perhaps.
Shame, which is one of the worst human emotion, I feel, is toxic shame. Can I just ask, does everybody know what shame is and what toxic shame is? This is one of the biggest core human emotions that we deal with on a daily basis.
Go on, tell me.
So, toxic shame, in short words, is what will people say?
Oh.
It's written.
That's a very interesting one.
What will people say?
We've all heard that one, though.
Yeah, so lots of people have the shame, and the shame also, it's what leads to people-pleasing and appeasement. When you are in your appeasement stage, you're not really fully transparent in your own stage. So you're not really as authentic to your true self because you're always afraid of what people say. Now, as a therapist and as holistic therapy, that is one of the biggest things that I deal with on a regular basis. Toxic shame. Everyone has an extent of toxic shame.
Yes.
I've actually spoken about this a few days ago, about toxic shame and how toxic shame can really affect people from being really true to themselves. And sometimes when people have toxic shame, they're not really able to flow and be where they want to be.
And how do you support individuals in breaking or disengaging from what will people say?
So toxic shame all stems from actual childhood. Toxic shame, let's go back with toxic shame. It's the appeasement barrier, and that's how we've been brought up. People-pleasing, appeasement doesn't come from nowhere. It's a thing that we've been brought up with.
Been trained.
Yeah. So that is what that's learned behavior from childhood. Toxic shame, and that's a lot to do with inner child therapy.
Okay.
Going back and letting the child express themselves. What will people say? Removing that. What do you feel, and what do you want to say?
I was actually reading something just a few days ago on Facebook, and it was to do with allowing children to own their own bodies. So it's no longer give grandma a kiss, give us a hug, or let me tickle you. So it's a kind of teaching children to actually honor that they get a choice as to whether they want to give grandma a kiss. They get a choice to say whether I'm going to give you a hug.
Yeah.
They get a choice whether anyone has the right to touch them and tickle them.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Actually.
In some sense, we grew up with that almost being standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in some sense, we were already not indoctrinated, but whether it's seen as acts of love, but sometimes maybe the act of love can blur your personal boundaries. Maybe a lot of this appeasement has arisen from a desire to show love, and the healthy boundaries between self-love and love for the other became blurred in the process. Because when it's really healthy love, you'll say, yes, I want to appease you, but I need to acknowledge how I'm feeling about this first. And if I'm happy with it, I will see what we can do to meet us in between.
It's very healthy. And you said something very important there, actually, and it takes me back to the chakra course that we do over 8 weeks. So toxic shame and appeasement is actually the demon of the third chakra, the solar plexus.
I see, okay.
So that is where the ego development starts, around the ego. So that's the I, I feel, I don't want to. Lots of people have shame and shame about their sexuality and stuff, and all of that starts around the third chakra, the solar plexus. And the energy catalyst who triggers this program is usually our primary caretakers. And I think you have a question.
Have I? I don't see a question.
I think you have to scroll up. Just there we go. Oh.
Hello, beautiful souls. Hello, Adrian. How are you, mate? He's in South Africa.
Oh, hoe gaan dit?
Oh, what was that?
How are you?
Oh, hundit.
Yes.
I like that. Oh, hundit.
Hoe gaan dit?
Oh, hundit.
There we go.
I'm learning something new today.
Yeah. There you go.
Please record and upload
to
onto
YouTube.
We will.
We were actually going to do that, and then I got a problem with my YouTube thingy.
We'll get this sorted at some point. Perhaps by session number 10, we'll be like pros when it comes to like press that button and we're live.
But if you have any questions regarding your emotions or with any current situation that you have, whether it's toxic shame, whether it's overcoming a situation or anything, just let us know. Ask us questions. We are not just here for entertainment purposes, but hopefully here to help you.
That's true. Yeah. So toxic shame. I like the fact that you actually mentioned the chakras. So in terms of the viewers out there, if they didn't have a therapy or a therapist available to them, are there any methods they can actually use to help clear their chakras, or any sort of like tips on how to clear?
Yeah. So the solar plexus starts developing when a child is 2 to 3 years old. That's the primary development of the solar plexus. I don't know if any one of you have children, but if you watch your children or your friends' children or anyone's children around the ages of 2, 3 and upwards, they start using the I word a lot. This is mine. I want this. This is yours. This is mine. Because that's when the ego starts to develop. And that's where the ego starts to become stronger within the child. So it's not terrible twos. People say my child's going through terrible twos. That's basically the child starting to establish identity. Absolutely. The ego, the identity. So that's all around the solar plexus of the child. That's the I. Then we have the parent going, you do not do this. You are like this. Behave. You're not allowed to shout. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to express yourself. There we have the critical parent. So the energy catalyst to the ego would be created from the parent or the primary caretaker. So whoever looked after you at that age. So if your mother was very with you and maybe not very like this with you, that would have created a trauma around the solar plexus of the child.
You see, I've got a question. My personal opinion is, because my sister and I, we're literally 11 months apart.
Okay.
But the two of us are quite different, apart from personality. Obviously, there's personality, differences. But the parent's still the same. So how would you explain that from your perspective, from your modality, how you have different ways in which two different individuals have extracted almost different methods or modes of behavior through engaging with the same individual?
Because each individual is different. So each child's sense of perception would have been different. So for example, if your mother went shopping and she left the room, you could have seen it as, my mother's just abandoned me. Your sister would have had a different outlook maybe on what your mother leaving.
So if she was actually more adventurous, she'll say, I've got free time.
Yes. So basically it's all the sense of perception, and that's where the emotions created. But that's where the data bank of history starts for us as individuals. It's all about what we've experienced and what we've been shown and what is normal to us. So really, it's like we're going back into this conversation again. It's all what we have perceived.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah.
So it's all of what we've really perceived as children, and that would have created, our belief systems.
But then what you're then actually addressing is the fact that it's almost like a 2-layer process, because each individual comes in not as a clean blank slate. There's almost like an underlying bias to each individual. Astrologically, we would actually say there's a bias anyway. And each individual looking at the same parent would extract different. Hello, Marcus. How are you?
Oh my God, you're blushing. I'm just joking. It's not.
Thanks. Anyways. So I would actually say that the same individual would actually be perceived differently by the two charts, or the two individuals with the different charts. And therefore they would then grow in a different way, although they had the same stimulus. Yeah.
Because every individual child is going to respond and react different. Because all children, look, I mean, the human brain is a really complex computer, and all of our brains are complex on a very different level. I mean, they're still doing, scientists and people and therapists are still working around the brain. So the way everyone's going to see and read things is going to be like from one computer to the next and to the next phone. All this wiring is very different. And this is how our beliefs are affected.
Yes.
And our truth and our internal truths are affected by this. You're right.
Yeah, I'm just sort of...
What are you thinking?
I was thinking about a process that I sort of thought about yesterday. It sort of goes like this, because it seems to be like something I'm actually developing at the moment. And it's to do with, for me, I perceive the energy of love. Okay, I don't want to sound airy-fairy, but the energy of love is... Good. But the energy of love, or the energy of acceptance and compassion, is the ultimate healing energy. Yeah. Okay? So that whenever we have an emotional response to something, most things are either we let in which case, I'm happy to actually engage with this emotion, or most other things are, I'm keeping it at bay.
Defense.
Exactly. So there's a kind of, either I receive it or I close off to it. So I was attempting, or I was guided to consider this particular process. And it's a kind of a cheeky process, because it starts off by saying, I want you to think about someone that you love with all your heart.
Should I do it?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah?
I don't have to say the person.
You don't have to say the person.
Okay.
You don't have to say who this person might be. But if you can just imagine a person that really feels you with a sense of love, a sense of warmth, with a sense of happiness.
Oh, okay. There's so many people to think of. Just
think of one. Let's just think of one primary individual that you can actually think of, and you really have that sense of
Okay. So let me get into my sense of
Yeah. Fall into your sense of
Just fall into, okay. Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, fine. I want you now to identify, when you think of this person, where in your energy field, open your eyes for a moment, where in your energy field is this person existing? It can be in your head, it could be outside. I just need you to actually almost feel where in your energy field does, when you think of this...
It depends which person.
How many people are you thinking of? I thought we were only focusing on one.
Oh, okay.
She's got so much love to
give. I have a lot of love for everybody. Okay, so let me think of one person. So I was thinking of a few people.
Okay.
One person, my heart.
In your heart?
In my heart.
Okay, that's fine. Now, I want you to think of something about yourself that you're not so happy about.
Okay. Okay.
Right. I want you to now consider where in your energy field do you perceive this aspect of you that you're not happy about?
So it's in my thought process.
It's in your thought process. So this is, you've actually identified it as almost like a packet of information.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you now.
I'm like...
Perfect, because effectively what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to get you to engage with is to almost imagine clamping onto that item that you're not happy about.
Clamp.
Okay, and then I want you to transfer it to the very place where you hold things in the light of love.
Okay.
And now I need you to take a nice deep breath, bringing your attention and energy to this. Perfect. And with the out breath, I need you to feel your feet. Again, in breath, out breath. And one last time. This is serious work, you know.
Oh, I know, I'm feeling it. Okay.
So what we've actually done really is we've actually it's a kind of nice. It was a kind of cheat NLP process.
That's what I was going to tell you. Yes, it's very kind of metaphoric because NLP is quite metaphoric.
Exactly, but each time we actually think of something, we actually have a compartment or a space spatially within our energy field where we keep things.
Wow, I'm speaking really fast. Is this normal?
That's normal. You're processing. I almost said. Yeah, you're processing stuff. Okay, so when you actually think of someone that you love, more often than not, you'll actually find that all things that you love dearly will actually sit within a specific area of that field.
Okay.
So now that you've got that point of power or that point of redemption or the point of love, if you can think of something like, just say, I'm not good at, say, writing. I've never been good at writing, as an example. And then imagine where this idea that you're not good at writing exists within your field.
Okay.
And then allow your body to move, engage with that item, and then move it. Imagine moving it and place it into the area where you actually hold love.
Okay.
That then changes your perceptual bias towards your idea that you can't write very well.
Beautiful. I like that. So, if any of you have had, say, a really challenging week this week, why don't you do this technique?
Hey, Matthew.
Hello, Matthew. Why don't you do this technique that Walter is giving us right now? That's a really beautiful technique. And it's quite creative and quite playful. And I feel so much better. That thought doesn't exist in my head anymore.
Seriously?
I stamped it dead.
You're not supposed to stamp it dead.
God.
No!
Bring it back to life! I'll have it thrown in my mouth.
The idea is to actually redeem it, to actually receive it, and to say, I accept you for how you are.
Okay. Well, I didn't do that bit. I killed it.
I stamped it to death. Yes. Oh my God.
As you can see, I'm what do you reckon you are? Do you think you're very emotionally expressive? Let's speak about your emotions here. Because
am I emotionally expressive?
What do you think about your emotions? When you're in a relationship?
I think for me, emotions, I've got very rich inner life, but I'm still learning to be totally clear and true, and just above board and transparent when it comes to expressing my emotions. I think there's still some hang-ups about expressing too much emotion. So there's a kind of interplay. There is a kind of sense if I was too emotional, would I be seen to be less than a man? But you see, for me, I use my emotions, I channel it through my artwork. That's where I allow my emotions to express themselves through the color. But in terms of like everyday dialogue, I find that not a lot of people tend to be openly receptive to men going ultra deep into their emotions. Granted, I do have quite a few female friends who are more open and who will create space for me to actually express it.
Yeah.
But with men, I tend to almost switch and become, hey mate, how are you?
Yeah. Yeah, that is quite normal. For many of you watching, it's because they say that the woman instinct is to nature and to nurture. So if we look at the animal kingdom and we kind of follow in that animal kingdom evolutionary system, men are made to be like warriors.
Yeah.
Right? So men are the hunters. They go away and hunt, and they're the warriors. Where female are the nurturers. So if you look back into the ancestral times and the Aboriginal times, men will go and hunt, and they really internalize things. But then again, this is why depression and mental illness amongst men, it's so big, because they are being taught to disconnect from that emotional sense and not to really connect. Where us women are very like, it's okay, come here.
Oh my God, help me!
You know, that's us.
But no, seriously, I'm glad you actually talked about depression, because I read a long time ago that when you've got, say, astrologically, you've got a very strong Mars, but it's not allowed to express itself. It can either express itself through moments of extreme aggression, violence, or frustration, or that frustration can internalize and it becomes a kind of self-hate. So that becomes a kind of depression. And then if it goes even deeper for a lot longer, then I guess you could actually say you've got issues with the system attacks itself. So then you've got the autoimmune issues. I'm not saying all autoimmune system issues is to do with Mars. I would love to actually do some kind of like study. All these people, how well are you expressing your Mars? How well are you expressing your Mars? And it's very interesting that we keep talking about Mars, because even before we started talking about this, I was addressing the fact that at the moment, the moon is actually in the last degrees of Aries, and Aries is ruled by Mars. You know, so here we actually have the emotional volatility. Here we actually have everything seems friendly enough, but there's a kind of simmering, there's a kind of energy going
You're reading
through.
me.
Am I reading you?
Well, this is how I've been feeling this week, totally. And guess what?
Yeah.
On my birth chart, the way my communication is, you know, the way my expression is Aries.
Oh, that's good.
I don't know if it's good.
It is good. It means that, I mean, the beauty about Aries is that if it's the expression, there's no pulling punches. There's no pulling punches. It is what it is. Sometimes it's spoken and then you think, oh God, I should have actually put that little line extra there or a little line there to make it seem a little nicer. But an Aries wouldn't actually think like that. An Aries will say, that's how I feel. Deal with it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. You got to own it. Oh, I'm owning it.
But I think being a Cancerian on top of it as well.
Are you Cancerian?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't. How amazing.
Yeah, I thought you knew I was Cancerian.
I'm just joking.
Oh, and by the way, to some people who was watching, because someone asked if
don't bring that up.
Yeah, let's just get that clear.
No, we're not a couple.
We're not.
We're very good friends.
Yes, very good friends. I can't believe. Yeah, I had to bring it up. Just because I think it is maybe a bit touchy-feely for some people who's emotionally disconnected.
But then again, is that a bad thing?
No, it's not. But that's also because we've been taught appeasement.
True. But anyway, so as a Cancerian, expressing herself with, through Aries, it means that you'd be more forthright in actually addressing things. It can mean you're more volatile. Okay, I'm not, there's always a plus and a minus.
Am I more volatile? I don't know. Do I have any of my friends watching?
Come on, people.
I don't know if I'm quite volatile.
Oh, no.
You're my friend.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm volatile?
My person, energy-wise, will I still be invited in here if I actually said what I said?
Yeah.
I think there is there is a kind of volatility to you.
Yeah.
There is a volatility to you, and I think you would. There is no. With some people, they actually try and sugarcoat and stuff. You can only sugarcoat so much. Your veneer is very, very thin. So that if you actually felt something, people would actually sense that you felt something. It's almost like it is just under your skin. And someone will say, Leilah, what is the issue?
Oh yeah, that's
Leilah, what is wrong with you?
Very true. I am not a very good liar.
Which means that effectively, the Aries aspect, that even if you try to suppress it, you are so emotionally authentic that you're literally vibrating it.
Oh, can you feel my vibration?
Yeah, I can, darling. But you know what I mean? So there's that authenticity that's actually saying, regardless of what I've been told or what's expected of me and how I need to behave, I will say what I'm actually feeling, even if I'm not using my mouth. And the Aries energy is actually quite assertive / aggressive. So there is that, whether you like it or not, I'm going to say it. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to express this. And it doesn't mean, I don't mean verbally express. Whether you like it or not, my emotions will assert itself.
Yeah. This is from a friend's perspective.
It's all right, isn't it? Well, yes. You wanna read me? Well, how do you think my emotions?
I feel that you are very emotionally observant of your emotions. I feel like you may be very internal. Yeah, very emotionally internal with your emotions. But I do think that you internalize the emotion and then you act. I think it's healthy.
Yeah.
But I feel that with you, when you are in an emotional space, you like to sit in there.
I love my emotions.
You do. And we spoke about this on the phone the other day. So embracing your emotions. So I think one of you have sent a message earlier this week, and someone said to me, I felt quite deflated this week. But how beautiful is a Deep, I don't know if it's you, sorry that may have actually said this, I'm not really sure, but if it's you and you do feel like you are internal and you're watching this, that's a good place to be. It's good to honor your emotions and to feel your emotions and not be afraid to say, I'm feeling shit today. I'm feeling like this, because honoring your emotion is a form of self-care.
Absolutely.
It's a form of self-compassion and self-love. If you feel like...
kind of self-respect.
It is. Just like because you're allowing your internal dialogue to have a voice and to express yourself. The worst thing one can do, and this is where you may start having a mental war. The worst thing one can do is to say, I'm not going to deal with my stuff. I'm feeling like this. I'm not going to deal. Create distance with your internal self and your external self.
Right. I'm going to say something about that though.
Devil's advocate.
Devil's advocate. But from an astrological point of view, sorry for coming back to astrology all this time.
No, that's good.
But sometimes it's good to distance yourself just for a bit.
Yeah, but
to get
some kind way?
Just so that you've got an objective perspective. So you get a secondary perspective and then jump back in and then address it. Because the reason being I'm saying this is that there is such a thing as good timing. Just because you're feeling something now, let's just say you're anxious about someone not doing something.
Yeah.
Just because you're feeling it now doesn't mean it needs to be expressed now, because sometimes if you actually choose the right time, you can use the energy that has actually been aroused within you to create a breakthrough or to create a breakup. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. But that's interesting. When you're saying emotionally distant, what I actually meant is people who emotionally disconnect. So they pull a blanket over and they go, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, but sometimes it's okay to actually say, I don't want to deal with this.
You think so?
Yeah, okay, let's just say you've just been through, I went through a bereavement way back in 2009. I kept diving into it. But my coping mechanism to actually find semblance of normality, it wasn't me saying, I don't want to feel this.
Yeah.
But sometimes being sunk within the depth of your pain doesn't help. So I went jogging, I went running, and in the time that I was engaging with my physical, I was able to then disconnect from it to give myself a breather. Because I'm thinking, if we think of ourselves as the physical, the mental, and the emotional, just as without the spiritual, let's forget the spiritual for a moment. You know, you can say the emotions can become so overpoweringly potent that it sort of takes you away from the intellect, or it takes you away from the body, where you don't self-care physically, or you become irrational. And sometimes it's okay to actually disconnect and actually move to one of the other aspects of being, to find a separate perspective of what am I sitting with? What is this emotion really triggering in me? And you know, what exactly, why am I actually engaging with this emotion? Why am I actually sitting with it? Why am I affected and triggered by it? You know, what about the situations that's actually doing it? And sometimes just moving into the physical allows you then to actually sort of like self-care on the physical level, which may give you that breakthrough as to why you're actually sitting with it. Or the intellectual, you know, and I believe it needs to be a dance between the three. It's, you know, it's a kind of a healthy dance between the three. It's not one being better than the other. It's about really, like we said about the children who are given the right to own their emotions, own their intellect, own their bodies. They become more able to actually adapt to what this moment is actually asking of them, and say, I need 30% intellect, 60% body, and 10% emotion. Or another situation, it may be 70% emotion, 10% body, 20% intellect. You know, and each of those can reflect different kind of circumstances. So the first maybe was actually to do with sitting for an exam, where you've got to actually almost have a kind of a centered perspective, or creating something, a piece of art or something, where you've got to actually have some kind of balance. The second may be a friend has actually just walked through saying, I've just broken up with my partner of so many years, I don't know what to do. You could go all cerebral, don't worry about it, there's many more fish in the sea, but then you're completely disowning the person's emotions. Or you can say, oh, here, have some cake. Or you can say, actually, I'll allow myself to be empathic and understand what exactly you're going through. So I think a really healthy individual is able to almost navigate and actually call upon how much they're engaging with each of those aspects of themselves, and then they meet the moment to then bring out the maximum outcome. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that it's a very interesting perspective. It's almost like, I don't think it's just connecting. I think it's not being anything.
You know, I'm not actually in your little video. If I'm actually sitting
Why
here.
Why are you sitting there?
Yeah, it's like
closer.
I'm like this head that's just like pops in and out.
Yeah, you come so closer. Devindeep, been having a tough one, but learning to acknowledge it. That's really good. Learning to acknowledge it. So I think Devindeep may have had a really tough week this week.
In what way, Devindeep? In what way were you having a tough one?
Tell us, Devindeep, what way were you having a tough one? But the fact that you say that you're learning to acknowledge it, the fact that she gives that is quite reassuring.
Yeah.
Because she shows that she's very present with herself. You know, and acknowledging something is being very present. So emotion, acting on emotions sometimes can be very, very dangerous. This is why they say, a lot of people say, don't act on emotion. And don't act on emotion, because it can be very dangerous.
Not all the time, though.
Well, I don't know.
You see, if I was thinking, if I actually took a piece of paper and I started drawing while I was very emotional, the art is like, oof.
Yeah, but that's slightly in a different context.
Okay.
So if we were if we were in a social surrounding and something happened, I
see what you mean. Okay.
You know, I would always say just sit back, because those emotions are just temporary based on the circumstances. Tomorrow you may feel something different. You know, whatever you throw up must come down. So whether you act on your emotion, you have to take responsibility for the outcome.
Yeah.
Because an emotion, and and a reaction creates a consequence, good or bad.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how's that looking on emotions?
We're at 6:30. How long have we been? I can't tell.
I'm not too sure.
Do you think we'll actually get more savvy as we go along with this?
I think last week it may have been easier, but I think it's getting there slowly.
We will get there.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
We'll come up with more topics.
I think early this week, did I call you? Did you call me? I may have called you.
No, I spoke to you last week before you actually went away.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And we were actually speaking about emotions.
Yes. I think emotions are a very important aspect of ourselves.
Yeah. Because we were saying how emotions are almost like color.
Absolutely. You know, I think when I learned to acknowledge and own my emotions, life gained more color. Literally, there was more color in my.
Okay, so we're just reading Devin Deep's comments. Oh, I'll come a bit closer. Ooh. Okay, so when shopping, I'm going to leave this one for you to answer. When shopping and struggled with the physical non-conformity of my body, all bodies are beautiful, of my body.
You just disowned that.
Wait, I haven't read. Conformity of my body, and whilst I let down by my body not fitting into the preconceived notion of what I was trying to wear, I realized that actually it was okay not to be where the marketers wanted to sell the image. Don't know if that makes any sense. Emotionally, I feel sad and regretful, but today I feel better. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful. I think if you get a chance to watch this video where we did that little exercise about reframing an object and placing it in the area where we would actually, or each individual holds love, you may be able to create even greater breakthroughs with regards to how you perceive and accept your body. It is not easy. You know, I think we live in an environment, in a society, this modern society, where everything is judged, everything is given a way of behaving, a way of actually addressing itself. How is it presenting itself? There is never a let up. You see it on social media, on the news, and the telly. Everything has that, on the billboards, everywhere you go. And I think it becomes really hard when you are seeking to not conform, but at least to be received, to be accepted. I think for me, that almost states that you are taking the first steps to actually owning and accepting yourself as an individual.
You can sit closer if you want.
Owning and accepting yourself as the individual, and that will then help you to move forward and actually feel a lot more comfortable, regardless of what the rest of the world is saying how we should look like. That's my opinion. Yeah,
I have a suggestion for this one, Beauty and Deep. Shadow work is really good. Also mirror work is very good. So sitting in front of the mirror naked can be very hard and difficult. I feel like it's very empowering. So mirror work and shadow work with yourself, it's important. Sitting there for at least say 5 minutes and start increasing it week by week. I feel like it's really good for internal growth as well as physical growth. Also the I Am challenge, the I Am affirmation challenge. So it's over 3 weeks as well. These are all practical tools that you can do. I am enough. I feel strong. You know, I'm enough. I feel strong. And then you breathe in 4 times. I am enough. I am strong. And then 4 times out. and then I'm enough, I'm strong. So if you do this, like this little meditation, another little meditation I'd like to show you now to help you empower yourself and your body. It's actually called the Yes meditation. Deep, I think this is really powerful for you. And any guy or girl who feels, that they need to amplify their energy, this meditation is very short, it's very powerful. It's called the Yes meditation.
Okay.
So we actually, we get taught this in Tantra. So I'm in my studies to be a Tantra facilitation teacher, right? So you can do it as well.
Okay, so I'll join with you.
Yeah, so you lift your hands up. So if you're watching this, you can do it. And you go, yes.
Yes.
And you bring it down. Yeah. So you do it again, up, and you go, yes.
Are you pulling something down?
Yes. So
yes.
You reconnect, engaging. And
yes.
You go, yes. And then you do it faster.
Yes.
Longer.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. It's starting to sound like something.
I know. And that is the point, right? That's the point. But you feel how happy it makes you feel.
I guess it actually moves your Shakti.
It does. And it also, it increases your oxytocin, and to feel good about yourself.
Well, talking about oxytocin, you could hug yourself.
There we go. Another one. You could hug yourself.
Or hug someone that you love.
Yeah.
Literally, and I mean surrender into a hug. Now, if you just did that and really allowed yourself to imagine that you are loving yourself in the process, you actually create a shift.
Is that good?
It feels amazing. I'm feeling
good.
Bliss.
Okay. That's good. That's nice.
Another thing I was actually thinking with regards to the I am exercise that you gave, I really like that. But I think there's another way you can actually really take it up a notch in terms of its function. And that is to actually look at yourself in the mirror and into your eyes as you speak those words. Because you're really almost, it's a kind of self-hypnosis where you're saying, I am.
And you have that reflection back at you.
Absolutely. And I think change occurs when we allow intimacy to happen between us and that which we are trying to shift.
Yeah.
And if that which we are trying to shift is us ourselves, then if we create intimacy by looking into the eyes of our reflection, you've begun the first steps of actually being intimate with yourself. You don't have to be naked. If that's too much of a stretch, you can just look at yourself with love, with compassion, with acceptance, and you say, I am enough.
Yeah. I've got my bangle on.
What's that
I
mean?
am enough.
Oh, okay.
So we have I am enough.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
No, not really. My eyesight's really quite bad.
It's really small as well. So I'm enough. So in the shop. So
can
we
you
have
actually see? Can you read that?
I can.
Oh, that's good.
I'm enough and I'm real. And we have another one. I am loved. So we have this affirmation bangles in straw. Yeah.
Come to the store and get some bangles.
I am enough.
She is enough.
But anyway, so do you have anything to finish off? Because I think we're finishing soon, right?
Yeah. No, I think we've done a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think perhaps what we'll do is we'll think up some new topics for the next talk.
Yeah. If you guys have a topic and you'd like to know something specifically, let us know.
And thank you very, very much for participating.
Thank you very much.
And for your thoughts and your words.
And
until
remember,
next time.
Peace.